G'day everyone, welcome back. Matt Tomlinson and I attempted to do a Facebook Live tonight. However, technology let us down, so he dialed in and we did an old-fashioned phone interview over the phone using the condenser mic. As you can hear, the sound quality is not as good as you've been used to lately. However, because it's a phone interview, I had to use the old condenser mic. We sat down and discussed some important issues that are facing his electorate, the electorate of Wright, which he's aiming to represent in the upcoming election on May 18th. However, the issues that we discussed weren't just affecting his electorate. They affect all of Queensland, and I can imagine that these things would affect Australia as well. It was awesome to hear his thoughts on these issues that he wanted to discuss, and really cool to see him refine his ideas and see how far he's coming along. As I've said before, he's not representing my electorate. However, if he was, I'd definitely give him a vote, and the people of Wright would be well looked after if he was representing them. Matthew Tomlinson KP for Wright is his Facebook page. Make sure you check that out. Obviously, with the election coming up in a couple of weeks, there's a lot of stuff going on, so there'll be plenty of information there. And look, I will reiterate what we said at the end. Make sure you pay attention to how you vote this year, guys. We do need to make a change, and it doesn't matter what party you vote for. You vote for whoever you think you need to vote for. However, people power wins, guys. We can make a change if we choose to. I really appreciate your time, and I did put a post up today. This past month, the month of April, was the best month we've ever had on the podcast. So for those that are listening to this, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate your time and your support, and please spread the word. There's some awesome conversations already in the bag and some really awesome conversations coming up. Again, thanks very much. Check out Matt Tomlinson KP for Wright on Facebook. Thanks to Jono for the intro and Rowdy for the music. I know Matty likes Bathe in the Sun, so we'll lead him in with Bathe in the Sun. Look after yourselves, stay safe, and we'll talk soon. Cheers.
Today I sat in a field of paper daisies. The gentle breeze made the world wave to me. The day has come with a gold ring wrapped around it. I think I might just bathe in the sun. And I hope my world don't crash in over me, just like it did yesterday. I'm pretty sure the last mirror that I cracked was more than 7 years ago. And I don't want to wear those bullet holes no more. I want to kill my nightmare, and I've done nothing wrong to anyone. Then I just want to be better, better than who I am, better than who I am, better than who I am, better than who I am. Moonlit river flows by gently, like the ocean made from the earth. It is healing all of my inner bleeding, even though it's only pictures in my mind. And I hope my world don't crash in over me, just like it did yesterday. I'm pretty sure the last mirror that I cracked was more than 7 years ago. And I don't want to wear these bullet holes no more. I want to kill my nightmare. Don't stick those pins in the dog that looks like me. I'm burning up, 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 I'm burning up. I'm burning up. I'm burning. Today I sat in a field of paper daisies. The gentle breeze made the world wave to me. The day has come with a gold ring wrapped around it. I think I might just bathe in the sun. I think I might just bathe in the sun. I think I might just bathe in the sun.
Mate, how you going? We just had a bit of a technology fail tonight, didn't we, mate?
Yeah, mate, we certainly did. It was a bit of a struggle there. The old 4G wasn't playing the game tonight.
No, mate. Well, look, we're both in the bush, sort of in our own way. So I think I don't think we can blame anyone, mate. The signal out both our ways can be patchy at times.
Yeah.
So look, we did have a few people tune in, and we must make sure we thank the guys that did tune in to try and give us a listen. I think that was really nice of them to, show us some love and to listen to some of the stuff we were talking about.
Yeah, it was definitely good to see some interest there.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Look, we'll start again for those that didn't see it. So, firstly, mate, how you going? How's it been? How's the trail been? You know what I mean? How are you personally going? Obviously, with a couple of weeks to go.
Yeah, mate, I'm going really good. I'm feeling good now. I've finished the full-time work here on the farm. I'm on leave,
Yep.
So campaigning full-time now. I'm feeling good. I'm excited. And we're getting a lot of support in the area, so it's really exciting to see.
That's awesome, mate. That's awesome. I think you're doing well, and I think some of the things that you're talking about. I've seen you on Facebook and stuff like that, and all the things you're doing. You seem to be really speaking to the people. And look, as I say, you're not in my electorate. However, you've got my support, mate. So I know we wanted to just keep this nice and short and sweet, and there was a few things you wanted to touch on tonight. And the first one you want to talk about was the Inland Rail project, mate.
Yeah, mate. The Inland Rail, it's a big issue with the constituents in this area, and rightly so. What we've got here is a national infrastructure project, which it has its merits for sure. But the problem that we've got is we're getting lumped with this project, and it's got absolutely no benefit for us, as well as it's putting a huge scar across our environmental and agricultural landscape.
So that's the proposed rail project from Brisbane to Melbourne, yeah?
Yeah, that's correct. So we're at the end of it. Right covers the final two stages.
Mm-hmm.
So from when it comes through the mountain at Toowoomba,
Yep.
It enters into the electorate of Wright.
Yep.
And it goes across the Lockyer Valley down into the scenic rim and terminates at Acacia Ridge.
Really? Okay. So that's my part of the world as well, mate.
Yeah.
I know. There's a lot of floodplain stuff across there. I mean, what kind of infrastructure are they going to put across the floodplain? I mean, that's a pretty dangerous area to be chucking a rail line across, I would think.
Well, that's one of the big concerns as well, mate. Out in the Condamine, on the other side of the Darling Downs, they're putting this railway infrastructure across the floodplains, counterintuitive to where the water flows. So it's going to be, in these big flood events, it's going to actually push the water into places where it should never have flooded before. So that's a huge concern for the farmers and the landholders out there.
Absolutely.
As well as completely dividing their property up. So it's going to make it very difficult for them to move cattle from one part of their property to another.
Yeah, we're going to have a dirty grey rail line straight through your property. I mean, so how are they getting? What's the study been? How are they getting approval to run this rail line through this area?
Well, they're running through they're going ahead as if there's going to be no stoppages at all. But what they're not accounting for is the interruptions that where the constituents at the end of the line are actually putting up against it. So we'd like to see more feasibility studies into where it would actually be better off into terminating, travelling through a different area.
Yes.
We don't want the coal coming through our area. We don't want these big double-decker coal trains coming through and spreading the coal dust. And up in the more residential areas, these trains are 15, 20 metres away from residential areas, schools, and kindergartens.
Well, that's no good, mate. I mean, the coal dust and the diesel locomotives, that's not going to be good for anyone.
No, it's a big concern. And it's going to really affect the quality of life that the people have come to expect in the region. And, not only that, there is actually no benefit. They're not projecting any big job infrastructure for us. It's definitely a big concern.
Oh, so they're not even predicting job growth for the area for the locals or anything else like that. They're just running. I mean, I think the thing, as you said at the start, mate, it does have merit. A rail line from Brisbane to Melbourne is definitely not a bad idea from a logistical perspective. However, there's got to be a better way to do it. You know what I mean, without affecting the community too much.
That's right. And what they're saying is, well, we're going to be taking trucks off the Pacific Motorway, but what they're not saying is at the same time, once it terminates at Acacia Ridge, they're going to be putting a hell of a lot more trucks onto the local roads around Brisbane and southeast Queensland to move this freight once it comes off the train. So they've set aside 750 acres of land down at Bromelton now at the back of Beaudesert here, and that's projected where they could have another terminal at some point to offload the freight. But the problem there is our local infrastructure here, the roads here, we cannot handle the pressure of another 100 trucks, let alone another several hundred trucks, which would be needed to cart the freight to keep on top of the 24-hour guaranteed time period, which is what the whole project is balancing on.
So they're balancing on the 24 hours Melbourne to Brisbane time frame.
That's what the whole project is balancing on.
Well,
so if we get a flood anywhere along the eastern seaboard that affects the rail, they cannot deliver freight in 24 hours.
Look, I'd be as a logistics specialist, mate. I'd be surprised if they could deliver it in 24 hours anyway.
It's going to be very tough. I think there's a lot of cloak and dagger going on, and that's what we're trying to get to the bottom of. We're attending these community consultative committee meetings, and the problem we're facing there is the residents who are opposing the project or concerned about the project, they're not getting their fair say in raising those concerns. It's not getting duly noted, I don't think,
right.
As well as it should be.
Yeah.
So it's highly frustrating for especially the Inland Rail Community Action Group that's heavily opposed to it. They're highly frustrated at not being heard. They're doing a lot of homework into the whole project, and at the moment, they're just not being listened to.
Well, look, as I say, you can't just do something like that. There needs to be, as you say, more feasibility studies, environmental impact studies, and future impact studies as well. I mean, the road network in Brisbane is pretty clogged up as it is. I can't see another few hundred trucks, B doubles they would be as well.
Yep.
On the local roads around Acacia Ridge out through Browns Plains and all that sort of stuff. That's not going to help. That's not going to help congestion at all. I suppose that leads us on to our next topic, mate. I suppose did you say the Inland Rail? Who are the people that are fighting against it? The Inland Rail
Community Action Group.
Are they on Facebook and that, mate? Can people have a look?
On Facebook, mate. They're very proactive. Give them a search up. There's some great people there that are working really hard, voicing their concerns. I'm just a spokesperson, really. Yeah. They're approaching me, telling me their concerns, and I'm just passing on their severe concerns with the whole project.
Well, mate. Well, yeah. Well, the listeners, make sure you look into that and show them some support, because I mean, and it's interesting. I'm actually part of that, mate. That's part of where I live, and it's the first I'd heard about it. So. Yeah, I'd heard whispers about it, but I didn't realise it was so far along. So yeah, definitely I'll be having a look at that myself, because that's my part of the world as well, mate.
That's exactly right. So it's going to affect a lot more people than what they're saying it will.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's where these feasibilities, the EISs, environmental impact statements, all those come into play.
Without a shadow of a doubt, mate. Without a shadow of a doubt. I suppose that moves us on to the next thing you want to touch on, mate, which is the Mount Lindesay Highway. We're going to try and put an extra 400 trucks on there. I think that's a bit of that's an issue right now, let alone if this Inland Rail project was to go ahead. Exactly.
Anyone who drives along the Mount Lindesay Highway will, will remember it purely because of the despicable state that it's in. It's bouncy, it's dangerous. There's cracks in places. There's not enough overtaking lanes.
It's still single lane most of the way out to your way at the moment, isn't it?
Mate, it's predominantly single lane each way from Browns Plain, just south of Browns Plains through to Beaudesert.
Yeah, that's because it sort of opens up at the Grand Plaza there and then goes to single lane once it gets out of there, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Once it gets closer to Park Ridge, it goes back to single lane. And in peak hour, there's no passing opportunities at all.
Mm.
There's very few ways to avoid using it. I mean, Teviot Road off to the side of it, it's terrible as well.
Mm. Well, I mean,
then,
if it's an alternative for everyone, they're going to use it, which is therefore going to degrade that section of road as well, isn't it?
That's exactly right.
Mm. Mm.
So what we've got here is a network of roads that were predominantly built in the 70s, back when HQs were king.
Yeah.
And they haven't been upgraded adequately to cope with the demand of the 21st century traffic.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. So, what are you guys proposing if you were to get in to the Cedar Right? What are you guys looking at? What are you guys looking at doing?
Well, we're basically ripping it up and starting again wherever possible. We definitely need double lanes.
Absolutely,
from Branston through to Beaudesert.
Well, that's an arterial that's a major freight arterial as it is. You know,
that's exactly right. We're getting huge pressure here in the Scenic Rim from housing developments popping up left, right, and centre. There's projected another 150,000 houses being put up in our region, but they're getting put up faster than what the infrastructure can cope with.
Well, yeah. Well, you know, what's that? 150,000 houses. You know, you take 3 people per house. You look at another. You know, there's another. What's that? 450,000 people, mate. You know what I mean? Plus cars and everything else like that. I mean, it's barely coping as it is. Like I did used to travel that road a fair bit when I was teaching, so I'm aware of the challenges that you've got along there. And that's really what is there any current government projects to upgrade that infrastructure at the moment, or?
Mate, the current federal government has proposed $30 million to throw at the Mount Lindsay Highway.
Right.
As I'm concerned, as far as many other residents are concerned, that won't fill the potholes between Browns Plains and Jimboomba.
Look, the reality is these days, mate, 30 million on a road project's not very much at all. It's not.
It's chicken feed, mate. It needs a lot more. It's, you know, it needs serious investment now, because the future proposed developments, they're just scary.
Well, I think it'd be a serious issue, especially for, as I say, the people of your electorate, because that's who it's going to affect the most. As you say, 150,000 dwellings being put in there. You know, over the. I think we did sort of try to touch on it during the Facebook Live. You did speak about future-proofing this stuff. You know what I mean? We can't just think about the now. You know, yep. Especially up here in Queensland, because it is a beautiful part of Australia, and more people are moving here every month. We need to make sure we can future-proof this stuff. Not just for us, but for our kids and their kids. You know what I mean? We've got to think about later down the track, not just now.
That's exactly right. You know, you look at the state that the Bruce Highway is up on the north side of Brisbane there, you can just about guarantee any long weekend that's, you know, from lunchtime onwards on a Sunday afternoon or a Monday on a long weekend, that's just a bottleneck. And that's the lack of foresight that we're facing here in the southeast. We need these guys who have the power, who have the say, to be going, right, we've got this projected amount of people going in. We need to seriously invest in being able to account for those people. But it's not only the roads as well, Triff. You know, there's jobs as well.
Absolutely,
where are all these people going to get their jobs from? We don't need 150,000 people struggling to find work and becoming a socio-economic dead zone.
Well, that's true as well, mate. Where's the supporting infrastructure for those dwellings, and how are we going to feed and employ these people? I mean, you can't just chuck, as you say, 150,000, 300,000 people into an area where there isn't a lot out there, mate. Let's be honest. You know, that's why it's such a beautiful part of the world. You know what I mean?
We're predominantly agricultural zone out here still. The farmers, they're just not getting the help that they need at the moment. I mean, most farms that have going well, they'll employ 4 or 5 people at the very least. But at the current moment, it's not feasible for them to employ much more than themselves, maybe one other person to help run the farm.
Yeah, well, the margin's not there in order to do that, I suppose.
That's exactly right. The margins aren't there. The properties here aren't big enough to justify it. Our electricity prices are disgraceful. It's, the cost of production is just going up and up, and the return on investment for the farmers who are, developing our food for the future. It's no wonder why they're walking away in droves.
Oh, look, it's definitely a serious concern. I think there's I know we've spoke about before, not too sure it was on the mic, about the disconnect of people in the city versus people in the farm, in the agriculture areas, and not understanding where their food actually comes from, and the fact that, as you say, my wife made me a lovely dinner tonight, mate. We had a stew and all that sort of stuff, and all that food we got was was local food. If we don't look after our people, we will go hungry. The answer is not to import everything. The answer is to look after our locals. You know what I mean? I think it's very important.
I mean, just because we're able to import food doesn't mean we should. We produce the best food in the world, bar none. We have the world-leading agricultural practices.
Absolutely.
We have the world-leading health standards. We've got the best biosecurity in the world as far as, we're an island. We don't have a border with any other nation. So we should be able to protect it a lot more than what it is being.
Absolutely. I think it's the quest for the dollar, mate, isn't it? I think that's the reality of it, and I think, again, we need to not think about making the money now. It's about how we're going to feed future Australia, and how do we safeguard that. And I think, as you say, very important stuff, mate. And and at the very least, upgrading the Mount Lindesay Highway for the people that are in the scenic rim now, let alone the future, is important as well.
That's exactly right. And at Co's Australian Party, one of our key priorities for the future is actually securing Australia as a global food and fibre superpower.
Which we could be. We could be and should be, mate. We could be and should be.
We should be, mate.
Yeah.
We've got a growing global population. We've got an ageing population here. We've got a very skillful population. Our farmers are some of the most innovative in the world. If we, with a minimal amount of investment into our infrastructure to boost, with the Bradfield scheme being implemented, linking up our dams so regions that aren't getting the rain have a chance for water to get pumped into them from regions that are getting rain.
Absolutely, that is something that I think should be done as soon as possible. I mean, it's got to be feasible. It's 2019, mate. You know what I mean? How can we not just supply water to the people that need it?
Mate, we shouldn't be looking for water on Mars when the people of Warwick on the other side of the Darling Downs they're facing 169 days of remaining water in their dam. Is
that it? Is that true? Wow.
169 days, mate. They will be out of water. They'll be trucking water in from somewhere else.
That's amazing. That's scary.
It's terrifying in this day and age.
Wow. It's 20. I mean, I think again, a disconnect is like, I didn't know that till you just told me. You know what I mean? I mean, why is that not front page news? You know what I mean? Like how?
If it was in Brisbane, it'd be all over the news each evening. But because it's a regional town, it's like, they'll be right.
But they've got a bit of agriculture out there as well, don't they? I mean, aren't they? They're supplying some of our foodstuffs out that way, or they got what?
Yeah, there's a lot of agriculture out that way, and all those farmers are facing restrictions. I was out there the other week for the Polo Cross World Cup at Warwick, and the crops just aren't happening. Nobody's got the water to spare to put into crops. They're basically keep in the water to keep themselves alive at the moment and their stock alive.
Wow. So I mean, that's obviously you can't plant the crops, you can't make, you can't sustain the farm. Like, it's just a knock-on effect from there, isn't it?
That's exactly right. The banks will come knocking on the door next. It's it's a pretty bleak outcome.
Well, mate, best of luck with. Is Warwick part of your electorate, or is that one of the other blokes running the?
No, mate, we've got Anthony Wallace from the Maranoa. He's running in that electorate.
Oh, that's right. The Maranoa, that's that massive one, isn't it? We
That's
spoke
a big
about
one, mate. That goes from Cunningham's Gap on my western boundary all the way across to the Northern Territory border and then up past Longreach.
That's right. That's the You showed me that. You showed me that when you were in the studio last time.
Yeah, mate, it's absolutely huge.
Well, good luck to that bloke. He's got a bit of a job ahead of him, doesn't he?
Anthony's got a big job, but we've got a lot of faith in Anthony. He's a good bloke. He's a hard worker, and he'll just keep plugging away.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. So I suppose let's. We don't want to go on too long tonight. I know you've probably got a busy day ahead of you tomorrow. So obviously, I know something that's very close to your heart, mate. National parks.
Yeah, mate. Growing up on the doorstep of Leamington National Park, the bush has always been strong in my heart. I'm very sad to see the national parks. They're just tied up in this green tape ideology, where the greenies are saying, "Well, let's let it return to how it should be." But the fact is, that's not how it should be. We should be managing it. We should be utilising the resources as far as for tourism dollars. People love going out to a national park. There should be where possible and where it's safe to do so, and not environmentally damaging. There should be controlled trails that people can go for a drive-through to get to their favourite areas. National parks are absolutely beautiful areas. They're being underutilised. They're being overgrown with weeds and feral pests. The amount of deer and pigs and dogs that are coming out of them at an alarming rate. The poor old farmers that are neighbouring them they're absolutely screaming for help because they're just getting inundated. And then the weeds as well, lantana, cockspur, you name it. It's all coming out of the national parks, spreading downstream and then affecting the farmers downstream.
Well, look, I mean, putting a fence around a national park and then trying to keep people out and not actually trying to, as you say, look after and monitor the land within the boundaries, it's not helping anyone. It's also creating a massive fire risk as well. I think that's...
Mate, you're spot on, and that's what we've seen in Victoria, and that's what we've seen earlier in the year up in central and north Queensland. It's the locking up and leaving that's doing the damage. Mate, climate change is happening, but you cannot blame bushfires on climate change when it's the amount of fuel load that's growing in these national parks and being left, and the local rural fire brigades aren't allowed to go in and they control it, have a control burn when it's cooler to reduce that fuel load. It's the green ideology that's burning these houses down. It's not bloody climate change, I can tell you that.
Oh, look, absolutely, mate. I think we might have spoke about before. I spend a lot of time up in the NT, and our Indigenous brothers and sisters up there, they do controlled burning during the dry season. And you never hear about bushfires in the NT, do you, mate? You know what I mean? And there's that land up there is full of bushland. You never hear about that. Why? Because they slash and burn. You know what I mean? They burn different sections, and therefore, through the ash comes fresh growth and all the things. That's actually that's the cycle of nature, mate. And I think
cycle of life.
Yeah, and look, I know, I'm a mountain biker myself, mate. I'd love to get access to some of these national parks and go for rides and, as you say, actually utilise this. And we were only just talking about before, how do we provide for these, incoming people from other states and around the world? Imagine opening up our national parks to as you say, tourism dollars and sharing some of the beauty. And as you say, not locking up and leaving it, however, looking after and and
maintaining the resource that it is.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, mate. That's definitely one that I'm very much on board with, because you can see it. Some of the, as you say, the fuel load. Like, I know, and look, it's a bit hazy my memory now, but I used to have a mate down in Victoria. I still do. However, he said some of the brush was like 4 foot deep. You know, when they
Yep.
had those fires down in Victoria, that's a lot of
Yep.
fuel. You know what I mean? And that would be happening in Queensland as well. You know,
That's exactly right, mate. You know, you look at the diaries of the early explorers that travelled through the central regions of Queensland. You know, Ludwig Leichhardt and Burke and Wills, and you know, there's a host of guys, and they were noting the immense grasslands of the inland, which is why they started bringing the sheep and the cattle over and pushing them out into these regions because the grasslands were there. Well, what happened once the sheep and the cattle got there and the indigenous population was, you know, displaced further, was those fires stopped happening in the regions and the suckers started regrowing. And that's when you get these regrowth happening. And when you get these thick, you know, the wattles and the gum trees in thick population regrowing in an area, A, the cattle and the sheep won't go through there, and B, it chokes out their natural grasses.
that's right. Well, there's no food for them, and look, you know, everyone, all us Aussies love a gum tree. However, they proliferate bloody quickly, mate. You know what I mean? If you leave them go, you know, and I think that's
exactly right. So, you know, for this big green concern about the amount of trees we've got, we've actually got more trees in Australia now than what we've ever had in history.
yeah, right.
So for them to be going on about, well, we need more trees, is actually completely changing and altering the Australian landscape, which hasn't been that way for thousands and thousands and thousands of years.
So, what would be your proposal, mate? I suppose to fix the current issues that we've got.
Mate, the returning of Crown land into public land would be a good start. So, you know, for the people to be able to actually utilise the resources of the environment, go out and have a look, you know, be able to, if there's a trail there, be able to take their car and go for a look through or ride a horse through there. But then not only that, in the North American model for public lands, what they've got is the Pittman-Robertson Act, where a percentage, it'd be like our GST here, a percentage of ammunition and bows and fishing tackle and hiking gear and climbing gear.
Or basically all outdoor recreation stuff.
Managing,
Yeah.
goes back into funding the land for the conservation.
And look, I think that's a good idea. And as I say, you know, as an outdoor rec person myself, I'd be more than happy to, if I knew that a percentage of that was going back into land management. And this is a misconception, isn't it, mate? That a lot of people, you know, seem to think that, you know, guys that like to go hunting or four-wheel driving or motorbike riding or mountain biking, that we're out there destroying the environment. In fact, majority of us aren't, you know, and you know that, and I know that. We're the front line of the conservation of the region. Yeah, we want to go out there and appreciate the beauty. The reason we want to escape out into the bush is because it's awesome. We don't want to mess it up. You know what I mean? And I think there's a misconception and a disconnect again there, where people need to understand. And again, this is our land. You know, a shared land with us and the Indigenous people and everyone else that's come to this great country. And we need to experience it and share it and look after it properly. You know, I think that's...
Yeah, you're dead right there, Triff. It's and in an age where obesity is an epidemic, we sure as heck should be encouraging people to get out into the great outdoors more.
Absolutely.
Not trying to lock them up and prohibit people from actually getting out there and exercising.
Yeah, that's right. You know, I think... And it's just about responsibility, mate. I mean, obviously, things will happen during outdoor recreational activities. However, it's got to be an acceptable risk as well. You know what I mean? Like that's the reality of what's going to happen. Putting a big fence around these national parks, and as you say, just letting them go wild, and you know the trees proliferate and all the fuel proliferate. It's not helping the environment or anything else. You know.
No, that's exactly right.
Well, mate, we're getting close to our time. I think we'll wrap it up, mate. Is there anything else you want to, you know, as a final message? Because I doubt we'll catch up again before the election. I know we've got a bit of a plan. Once it's all said and done, mate, I'll come out to your place and we'll sit around a fire and reflect on what's happened. However,
Yep.
between now and then, between now and the 18th, what's the message you've got for the people of Wright and I suppose, look, honest, mate, the people of Australia, you know what I mean? I think that's the reality.
Mate, the one final message I've got is for people to understand that preferences, they're being used as a weapon to scare people away from the minor parties like Katter's Australian Party. The major two parties are saying, using the word preferences to say, it's like we're doing some sort of backroom deals to try and pinch away votes. It's not the case at all. So how preferences work is we are legally obliged as a party to provide a how to vote card and list all the candidates in that electorate and number them as to where we think that position should be. Now, that's only purely a suggestion. There's a lot of games around how those numbers are positioned, and that's where the whole preference thing comes in.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, it's up to individual voters. They've got the control of where their votes go. As I said, the how to vote cards are purely a suggestion. They can make up their own mind as an individual voter who they number as for their own personal preferences.
So for example, I know obviously it's like 1 to 7 or however many candidates there are in the area that you are voting in.
Yep.
You can number those whoever you like. It's not,
Right.
you don't have to choose major parties as number 1 or 2. You could choose, as you say, Katter Australia Party or whoever you choose to vote for as number 1 and put those preferences as you see fit in your electorate, based on the candidates in your electorate.
Absolutely. If you want things to stay the way they are, if you think they're great, then by all means, keep voting the way you have been. But if you're really looking for change, get to know who your candidates are and what they truly stand for, and vote accordingly. Use that power. Don't do a donkey vote and just do the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 down the page. Actually get to understand who your candidates are, what they stand for, and look at the change that they can bring to your region.
Look, I think, and this is something I know we've spoken about off mic, mate, and we need to remember that people power wins, doesn't it? We could band together and actually make a change if we chose to, and not many people are happy with the way it's going. However, at the end of the day, regardless of whatever anyone in Canberra says, there's 23, 24 million people in this country that can actually make a change or make them make a change as opposed to just, as you say, the standard stuff every day.
That's exactly right. In Queensland here, you've got myself, Matt Tomlinson here in Wright. We've got Anthony Wallace, as I mentioned him earlier. Yep. He's the candidate for Maranoa. Yep. We've got Brendan Bunyan. He's a diesel fitter by trade. He's up in Dawson, up in the from Mackay up to the southern region of Townsville. Mm-hmm. Then we've got Nanette Radek. She's in the seat of Herbert in Townsville, and Dan McCarthy, he's up in the Cape. He's a fisherman by trade. Yep. We've got George Birkbeck. He's our latest candidate in the lower house. He's in the Rockhampton region of Capricornia. Yep. And then we've got the big man, Bob Carter, out in Kennedy. Yep. So they're our lower house representatives candidates. Mm-hmm. And then we've got 2 fantastic Senate candidates as well. We've got Joy Marriott. She's a wonderful woman. She's a grazier from up in Cape York. Wow. She was on the Cattlemen's Council for years. Very intelligent lady, very driven, and then we've got Greg Wallace. He's a fantastic Indigenous man who's been a public servant all his life. Mm-hmm. Helps deliver the work for the dole up in the Cape for the Indigenous communities. The Indigenous communities up there were never better under when Greg Wallace implemented the work for the dole scheme up there for them. Yeah, right. Well, it would have given them a sense of purpose and all that sort of stuff as well, mate. So look, that's exactly right. A bit of ownership, a bit of respect back in the communities. So what I suggest to everyone, if you live in Queensland, you can vote no matter where you are. Even if you don't have a lower house representative in your electorate, you can still vote for Joy or Greg in the Senate. Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. So anyone in Queensland can vote for Katter's Australian Party. Right. Okay. Well, that's definitely something. It's definitely something for the guys to know.
Well, mate, look, listen, thanks very much for your time and making time for me tonight to update the listeners and, and look, loving what you're doing, man, and best of luck. I think, as I say, you've got my vote. I can't actually officially vote for you. However, you've got my vote. And as I say, the last podcast we did was the fastest podcast to triple figures. So, and it's been the best month we've ever had here at Unlocking the Code, and that's nice. That's I know that your podcast that we did a few weeks ago definitely contributed to that. So thanks very much for your time, mate, and best of luck. Best of luck.
Thanks, Triff. I really appreciate your time, mate, and the work that you're doing as well. Raising awareness for blokes specifically. It's pretty tough out there for blokes, and the information and help you're putting out there for blokes, it's really good. It's great to see. I'm in full support of what you're doing, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the future holds for us all.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. I think what did I say on a post today? Onwards, upwards, ever forwards, mate. You know what I mean? I think we'll just keep punching away, and I think the future's bright, mate. We got to take responsibility for ourselves. Step up like yourself and take responsibility for our community and our loved ones. And if we can do that and be open and honest with each other, I think we'll get some good work done for sure.
Cheers, mate. At the end of the day, I'm just the ears and the voice for the people who come and talk to me. This whole campaign, it's not about me, it's about the people, and the people are ready for change. So let's bring on May 18 and, let's see what we can get happening.
Awesome, mate. Well, best of luck, and, we'll catch up soon.
Thanks, Triff. Appreciate it, mate.
Good on you, mate. Thank you. Cheers.
Right.